Hey everyone, it's Blake. Welcome in to episode number 47 of our WWE 2021 Save and TEW 2020. This is SmackDown for the first week in October, and as I laughed about on the Raw episode, it's been a while since we've done SmackDown. I think it's been actually 2 weeks since our last episode of SmackDown, at least on the channel. Of course, we had all the other stuff to kind of build up with Unforgiven and starting the WCW 1998 save, which I'll get to some more details at the end of this particular episode, but it's been a while with SmackDown, so if you want to get caught up, go back through, check out the last episode of SmackDown, which would have been episode number 42, and you can kind of get caught up pretty quickly on that. But we'll obviously mention a lot of the things that happen that have kind of built up into some of the storylines on this episode. But let's jump into it. There's a lot to get to, and we start with the pre-show. Our man Ricochet back on the pre-show. Maybe this is kind of what we've done. We've relegated him to the pre-show, and we blame everyone. We blame Austin, Triple H, Sheamus, Michael Hayes. They're all involved here. It's a total collusion against Ricochet, but he is on the pre-show, and he does get a win, though. So it's not all bad for him after making the switch from Raw, and we're trying everything with him right now. But 56, he's still benefiting from that hot new move. No one cares, though, because everyone hates him. But it's fine. So he gets a win on the pre-show. We'll do some more with Ricochet in the future, but we've kind of backed off a little bit just because no one likes this guy for some reason. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with Ricochet. But that's the pre-show. Let's jump into the main show, which, what do you know, starts once again with a very upset head of the table. And it is Roman Reigns, who still not pleased with the Usos. 88 here, just unbelievable what Roman can do. But Reigns says, and I know some of you kind of predicted this, but we set it up that way with the six-man tag on the previous episode of SmackDown, where it was Sami Zayn and the Usos getting the win over Cena and the Viking Raiders, but it was Sami getting the win, actually the pinfall on one of the Viking Raiders, and that was kind of the setup there with that. Of course, the Usos, who had been pressured by Reigns to really step up their game to start actually winning matches. Well, they won technically, but Reigns says they still aren't winners because they weren't the ones that had anything to do with the decision in that match, and he still needs to see something from him, and he says he needs to see it sooner rather than later, or else he is going to have to make some decisions, and there will be consequences, as there's been for pretty much everyone involved with Roman Reigns in this entire series thus far. So that's Reigns' message to the Usos, and we will quickly see them here after this segment. But after they exit, it is Reigns with Heyman, and Reigns tells Paul Heyman to get the table ready for The Rock because he wants everything set up. As we know, Reigns told Rock last week on SmackDown that he would agree to a match, but it had to be under Reigns' terms, and so he invited The Rock tonight. And so Reigns says to make sure everything's in place, he wants a nice long table for them to sit at. Of course, he has his table. He's the head of the table. So he gets whatever he wants here, and he wants that table in the ring tonight, and he wants to see if The Rock is going to show up to discuss the battle terms here for these two. So great opening segment, as always with Reigns. Just everything delivers, and these ratings are just only raising the profile of the Usos, which is kind of exactly what I want. So it's really helping here. But speaking of the Usos, they walk out, and they go straight to Apollo Crews, who they're going to be teaming with tonight in another six-man tag team match. And the Usos explained to Crews, look, they have to win this match. They have been made it clear, like they need to be the ones to factor into the decision here. So they tell Crews, stay out of their way. They'll take care of this. But if they need him to help, they'll let him know. But they have to be the ones to kind of showcase themselves here and prove that they, are worthy to the head of the table. But Crews, on the other hand, says, look, I'm a former Intercontinental champion. I don't need to be told what to do. He says, I will take care of myself. You guys can take care of yourself. We'll all be fine. So that's Crews talking about it there. And, of course, we're going to go straight into that. And it is in a six-man tag team match. Shinsuke Nakamura and The New Day back on SmackDown after successfully defending their titles on Raw. They get a win over Apollo Crews and the Usos in 17:29. Nakamura pins Crews with a Kinshasa there. And so it only gets a 55 overall. As you can see here, a lot of good individual in-ring performances, but the declining Nakamura, some of that stuff is just going to continue to kind of drag down some of the ratings here. And this did go kind of long, and I had to make this longer than I wanted to, but we have to hit that threshold of having certain match to angle ratio, and that should tell you a little bit about kind of what the situation is going to be angle-wise on the show. We got some angles we got to get to, and there's quite a few of them, so we had to kind of beef this match count up a little bit, so I was willing to take the, kind of fault here of just getting a 55. If it had been much shorter, it probably would have been a little bit better, but it's fine. Again, we have to kind of pick and choose here when it comes to match versus angle, because unfortunately, some of our angles have to be, they have to involve a lot of minutes to be able to get good ratings. So we kind of really had to beef up this match time here, because some of our other matches, quite frankly, can't go very long based on the competitors involved. So we try to do that here, and it's fine, 55 overall. But, of course, the bigger story is that the Usos not only lose here, but they do not factor at all into the equation. And so we'll see what the fallout is for them. After successfully winning a six-man tag the previous week, now they lose a six-man tag, and they have sort of no fault of their own because they're not involved in the decision in any of it. So we'll see what Roman Reigns' reaction is going to be to that. And then it is Mick Foley, who is backstage, and he has the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions with him, Sonya Deville and Shayna Baszler. And he says, hey, congratulations. You successfully defended your championships at Unforgiven with beating Liv Morgan and Toni Storm. But Foley says he knew they would be coming back to SmackDown, so he's already been working on something pretty special for them. Because he can tell. They've been very dominant champions thus far. They've been dominant over the past several months in singles action. And he says that he's already had something in the works because he was confident that they would probably still be the tag team champions. So he's been working on this for a while, and he says that he has a very special match in store for them at No Mercy. So, the teaser there, I like to, as you know, I like to add in some teasers here or there, and this won't be the only one on this show, but that is kind of setting up some intrigue as to what's the match going to be for our women's tag team champions at No Mercy, and we'll play off of that over the next several weeks leading up to the pay-per-view at the end of October. But a good segment here, 65. I'm fine with that because Sonya's still getting the public support, so that's good. And then it is Bray Wyatt, who is backstage, and Bray, in his usual dark corner of the building, decides that, hey, he told everyone he is here to bring out the darkness, and he's already done that, he said, with Drew McIntyre, and now he's going to do that with Jeff Hardy. And he made that kind of clear last week. That was his plans, and he says that for everything everyone is trying to do, everyone is trying to, bring this light into the darkness. But he says that's just not going to happen because as long as Bray Wyatt is here, the darkness will reign over everything else. And so Bray Wyatt with sort of a quick, ominous promo as usual for Bray, and 85, just fantastic stuff here from him. So that is going to lead us into the match with Bray Wyatt and Jeff Hardy. And as expected, which is why I did not put this at the main event, this does not do very well. 58 overall. I can't even say that's disappointing because we've talked about it. Jeff is just in a situation where not only does he have declining physical abilities pretty much across the board, but he has probably less momentum than anyone on the roster right now. And so we had to kind of book this match, and once I knew I kind of had it in place, I was like, yeah, maybe I should have did something else. But we just wanted to kind of get through this because the story played into it with Bray and Jeff and all that. So I was like, let's just do it, and let's kind of get it over with. So we did that here. It only goes 9:37 because, again, Jeff's stamina, very low, so he can't have a long match. I hate it for Jeff because, I would like to be able to use him a lot more. And we did. I mean, we used him in a pay-per-view main event with Roman Reigns several months ago, but it's just kind of been downhill from there in terms of what he can do from his ability-wise. And, we try to protect him. We try to do all kinds of things, but it just doesn't work out well. So, we can see it here looking at the dirt sheet. Like, there's just, Bray also, inconsistency, that doesn't help too, but we have the declining physical ability with Jeff. That's been something that's always played into. So the Bray thing does play into it as well. So this really wasn't as bad, I guess, as it could have been. And, of course, there wasn't really a storyline associated with it. I mean, we could have put one in, but it's fine. So that is a win for Bray Wyatt, as expected. It only goes 9:37. Again, kept that short. Sister Abigail. But the bigger story coming out of this is going to be after the match, Bray Wyatt standing over Jeff Hardy after the win. And then all of a sudden, the lights start to flicker. Doesn't go complete darkness, just the lights are flickering. On, off, on, off. And Bray is kind of looking around. Of course, this is Bray, so he loves this kind of stuff. And so he's looking around with a smile on his face and wondering what is going on. But it's almost as if Bray knows what's going on. But yet, we don't get any insight into what is actually happening. But Bray looking around, the lights continuing to flicker on and off, and then they come back on, and they stay on, and the crowd buzzing, not exactly sure what's happening here, and then that's it. So, 88, great segment, but as I said, I like to build in some teases, and, well, here's another one. What could this mean with the whole Bray Wyatt situation? Well, perhaps we will find out at some point. What we do know is that there's no Drew McIntyre on the show. Could that factor into the equation? We'll see. We have no idea what's happening right now with this whole Bray Wyatt situation. And then it is Alexa Bliss making her way to the ring. No, it wasn't Alexa Bliss flicking the lights, I promise. No worries on that, everyone. Alexa Bliss makes her way to the ring with Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. Of course, that was the big sort of, reveal, if you want to call it, on last week's episode. We call them the Mean Girls. I know everyone's not a fan of that, but until I can think of something better, that's what we're going to go with. But they make their way to the ring. Kai and Gonzalez, they made their main roster debuts last week, coming in and serving as backup for Alexa in this feud against Bianca Bel-Air. And so they all come out, make their way to the ring. Alexa goes to grab the microphone, but before she can even speak, the crowd is losing their minds, and that's because they see Bianca Belair running straight down. She is charging into the ring. She goes in, takes down Dakota Kai, but Bliss uses the numbers game to her advantage because it is 3 against 1 here. And Alexa Bliss and Raquel Gonzalez, they go after Bianca Belair. They take her down. It's 3-on-1, and there's really, no alternative here for Bianca as she's taken down. We see Raquel perform formally in this segment, but I mean, again, overness-wise, these two are not that over, but just having these two in here is going to help them, I think. So we kind of put them all together to try to do that. 68, so it's not bad. We know what we can get with Bianca, like in solo segments and stuff, but we have to kind of, put her in here too to kind of help some of these others get over, and that's what we're working towards here. But, Alexa does great here in this segment, and I am very intrigued by this, where we're going with all this, but this is kind of it. They get the 3-on-1, and then it is Alexa grabbing the microphone, which she had before Bianca interrupted her, and she says, once again, the difference is no one wants to save Bianca because she's the champion, and she's the one with the target on her back. So if she's looking around for help, no one wants to help her. And this is Alexa just sort of playing bully here and saying that, that is once again the difference between them two, because Bianca's the champion, she's got the target on her back, and this is simply the way it is. No one wants to help her, and they're not going to help her, and that at some point, Alexa says she's going to take that championship from Bianca Belair. So Alexa, kind of using the bullying tactics here, but telling Bianca, you're the champion. No one wants to help you. You're the one with the target on your back. So we'll see if that's true, but for now, it is the heels getting the advantage here on our SmackDown Women's Champion. And then our Intercontinental Championship match, Keith Lee defends the title successfully against Otis. 732 gets the pinfall here. Keith Lee's second defense of the Intercontinental title. Of course, he defended against Apollo Crews in the rematch there, I think a couple weeks ago it was now. 57, again, was not expecting this to be a 5-star match of any sort. And we kind of put that together pretty quickly, I know, with the Otis thing. But we also want to kind of build up Keith Lee as not necessarily, the Kevin Owens range of just going out and wrestling on every single match and defending the title every night. But Keith Lee, not afraid of anyone. He's not afraid to back down from, even someone like Otis, who is a very, intimidating person. So Keith Lee comes in, successfully defends his championship. This was another one where Otis' stamina not great. So we kind of had to keep this short. But with a match like these two, you would expect it, like a very physical match. And that's kind of what we were aiming for. So 57, I don't think this show, as we can kind of tell at this point, our match ratings are not very good. And so I think that'll bring the show rating down from that standpoint. But this is, one of those shows we've kind of had with SmackDown. And we've had them on Raw too. But we've kind of really had to use it on SmackDown at times. And it's the Reigns effect. I mean, Reigns is the most over superstar there is. And, we've kind of had to put him in a lot of angles just to kind of build up the show. So I think this overall show rating will be worse than we've seen in recent weeks with SmackDown. It definitely won't be that 87 that we had a couple weeks ago, our best show ever. But that's, I don't want to say it's intentional, but we just kind of, it's an ebb and a flow. Some shows will be better than others. That's what we can say. So Keith Lee, still the Intercontinental Champion. And then it is, actually, we got Sami Zayn here with Pat McAfee. I'm just shocked here by Pat struggling going off script. He's usually very good at that. So a 70 could have been better, but McAfee struggles here in this one. It is Sami Zayn with Pat McAfee, and Sami Zayn, of course, he's telling everyone he's in the production truck last week, talking about how he beat John Cena after that match in the six-man tag, even though he didn't actually beat John Cena. He just beat John Cena's team. And so now Sami is with Pat McAfee, and Pat notices something on Sami's jacket. He's like, wait a second, is this what I think it is? And Sami says, absolutely, it is a button. So he's got a pendant, basically a little circular pendant on his jacket that says, I beat John Cena. So Sami Zayn really has gone out and got customized buttons and all sort of merchandise, apparently, from the fact that he beat John Cena. So Sami's really going overboard with this, but he's a conspiracy theorist. What do you expect? And Sami says, hey, I'm just letting the world know once again, I beat John Cena. And he just keeps saying it, and he says tonight he's got someone else to take care of business of, but after that, he'll get back to doing what he does best, and you know what's coming. He's going to beat John Cena. So that's Sami's sort of remarks there. He's all the conspiracies. He's not going to hold back Sami Zayn. So let's see if he's right about this. This is actually going to be our main event match of the show, which you probably could have never predicted that this is going to be a main event on SmackDown. But it is, as it is. Sami Zayn getting the win over Eric of the Viking Raiders. 14:05. Actually not a bad match here. Like a 68. I'm actually very surprised. I mean, but maybe I'm underestimated Eric. I mean, I don't know. Like, this is one of those where I think it was Sami, and I may have gotten this mixed up, but I think Sami pinned Ivar in the six-man tag, and we wanted to kind of, separate it to where that was sort of to set up the main event here. Even the main event. We could have moved this around, but that was to set up this match this week. And so that's kind of the thinking here, is that Sami did, from what I remember, or I remember how it went. I'm just trying to think of, he pinned one of them, I know, in that six-man tag. But he gets the winner over Eric, and like I said, not a bad match. 68 overall, even though Eric's in-ring performance, 53, but 14:05. One thing I noticed was that Eric actually has some pretty good stamina, so when I was trying to pack in the minutes to sort of have the match versus angle time, structured properly, I was like, we can actually add more minutes to this match because Eric's got some pretty good stamina. So that's what we went with here, and it is, a pretty decent match. So Sami gets the win, 14:05, but unfortunately for Sami, he's been running his gums a little bit too much here, and it sounds like somebody's a little bit tired of that, and that leads to John Cena coming out. Sami is celebrating his victory, and John Cena just comes right in, and Sami sees him, and Cena doesn't even wait. He just hits the AA on Sami, and Cena just sort of shakes his head at Sami, and Sami down and out after all this talk of taking out John Cena. Sami gets the AA for his troubles, and Cena just walks in, walks out, takes care of business here. And so Sami maybe got a little too overconfident about, beating John Cena, as Cena walks out and just quickly, with the AA, sends Sami down. And so we'll see. I'm sure Sami will have something in mind. I have no doubt about what that means. But 81 here, good stuff. I mean, again, putting these two together, Cena's very over. It's helping Sami get over. So much more to come when it comes to these two. All right. Now, it is Roman Reigns and The Rock. And this only gets a 90, which I'm going to tell you right now. I can't say I'm disappointed because I only had so much time to go around here, and my guess is if we look at this, I can tell you right now what it's going to say. It's going to say that it was too short. And yeah, so we knew the commentary was going to get it, but as a short angle, and so we kind of had to take that for what we could here because we just didn't have a lot of time on the show. I guess I could have found a couple more minutes somewhere here or there to add to this, but that's why it gets a 90. But it is The Rock. He's back, and he's coming out to respond to Roman Reigns, who is sitting in the ring in this very long table, because he is the head of the table, I might remind you. And Reigns waits, and The Rock comes out. He's here, and he's here to hear out Roman Reigns. What does he have to say? What are these terms that The Rock must agree to And Reigns says, look, you're going to do this on my terms because I'm the head of the table. I'm the tribal chief. The Rock had his opportunity to be sitting right there in that seat that Reigns is sitting in, but The Rock instead took his ball and ran off to Hollywood. And he says, The Rock, we know why you're here. If you want to try to make yourself relevant again inside my ring, you'll have to make a sacrifice. So Reigns tells him he has to make a sacrifice, and Reigns says that he will put his Universal Championship on the line in a match. And if Rock wins, he gets that past glory that he's seeking. He gets that relevancy back that he desperately wants, that he can't get in Hollywood. But Reigns says, when I beat you, I don't want you to ever step back into my ring again. This is my world now. That's what Reigns tells him. And that when I pin you 1, 2, 3 at Survivor Series, your career in the WWE is over. And he says no more return matches, nothing for you to try to regain your relevancy inside of my world, because this is my world now. And Reigns says, you're done, Dwayne. You decide. Do you want this championship? Because if you do, those are the terms. So Reigns essentially putting it on the line here, saying that if Rock wants to challenge him for the Universal title, he'll have to make a sacrifice, and that sacrifice will be that if The Rock loses, he will never wrestle a match ever again in the WWE. So big proposition here from Roman Reigns to The Rock, and The Rock is sitting there looking at Reigns, thinking about it. But The Rock does not have time to respond, because before he can respond, he gets blindsided by Seth Rollins, as Rollins comes in and just completely blindsides The Rock, and then The Rock is down, and then, of course, we have Rollins standing there looking right at Roman Reigns. We know what we've kind of built up here with these three based on what happened in the last couple episodes. So we know there's tension there between Rollins and Reigns, and so Rock is down, Rollins just takes him out. And instead of sort of Rollins and Reigns having any interchange at all, it is Reigns who gets up from this chair at the table. He grabs The Rock, goes to pick him up. Great segment here, of course, 88. And so Rollins is kind of standing in the background, wondering what's about to happen. Reigns has The Rock by the shirt, and he's just holding him up and just staring a hole into him. But before anything else can happen, here comes Damian Priest, as Priest hits the ring, makes the save, he hits Rollins, goes after Reigns, and The Rock has come to now, and The Rock and Priest are getting the upper hand on Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. They clear the ring, sending Rollins out one side, Reigns out the other, and just chaos here, as great segment, 85 overall. We get Damian Priest involved here once again, and this is kind of the story we've been trying to tie together, as we know, really on SmackDown over the past month or so now, if that. These four have had some sort of interaction with one another in some form or fashion. Of course, we had the big title match between Reigns and Priest. We've had this stuff before in the past with Rollins and Priest. Of course, Rock and Reigns. So, I thought this was the best way to sort of tie it all together here. To really, build up that suspense even more with everything that's going on. We build up the tension here. And so this really worked out very well. Like I mentioned, we would have loved to get the 100 in Reigns and Rock, but that was the first time I think I want to say the segment was set at 3 minutes. So it was very short. Could not be that short, but we had to put some time elsewhere on other things. So I was like, a 90 is better than, anything for these two. So we'll take that. But it is Priest and The Rock standing tall in the ring, as Rollins and Reigns not necessarily joined together on the outside, because we know there's a lot of tension there, but they seem to find themselves with more, common enemies here, and just kind of the way all of this ties together. I think there's a lot to work with here, and I talk about my excitement for Raw and where we're headed, but we got a very exciting direction we're going in here on SmackDown, and I mean, really, the next probably 2 to 3 months, we've sort of got built out on SmackDown in pretty good detail, and if everything comes together as planned, I think it's going to be a very fun ride here, especially in the main event scene on SmackDown. So there you go. That was SmackDown. A strong finish. Very, again, angle heavy towards the end of the show, really throughout the entire show. But we are officially on the road to No Mercy here with the pay-per-view being this month. So we had to sort of, continue to sort of kick things up a notch as we usually do once we get closer to the pay-per-view. So great finish to the show. I'm curious to see what the rating is going to be. And a 77. So that's really, one of our weaker shows we've had in a while. But like I said, I'm not too surprised by that because this was, very heavy on Reigns, Rock stuff. Also, some Bray Wyatt angles helped us out in there, and that's why we tried to include it. But match-wise, this was not one of our better shows from a match standpoint. But that's fine. It's going to happen. I always say that. Like, there's going to be certain weeks where, the matches are not as good, but it's because we're building to bigger matches, and that's kind of the goal here, and we do have a pay-per-view coming up at the end of the month. So overall, pleased with how things unfolded here on this episode of SmackDown. Always want a higher rating, but it's fine. Like I said, I mean, we got an 87, a couple weeks ago now. That gave us a little wiggle room to be able to, have some of these shows like this. So all good on that, and let's see what we need to get to before we wrap up. All right, so SmackDown, we strike gold, and that is our thing. AEW launching a feud. What is that going to be? Chris Jericho, Jon Moxley. All right, good for them. That's a big feud for AEW. Let's see. I know we've got some email in here somewhere. Josh Alexander, we have him on a short list. He's relocating. That's fine. Drug test fees. SmackDown gets a 5.31. I assume that's pretty good as usual. AJ Lee gave birth, so congratulations to AJ Lee and Baby Punk. Baby Punk has arrived. So we may try to sign, the child of AJ Lee and CM Punk. Maybe we should go ahead and put her in developmental and go ahead and get that started pretty soon. So we'll see. Probably won't be in the main event this year at WrestleMania, but you never know when it comes to our booking. But there you go. That was SmackDown, and there's a lot of fun storyline stuff in the works on SmackDown, and we purposefully left a couple people off SmackDown, and I'll let you come to your own conclusions on who that is. If you've been following, you know who that is, but that's to kind of maybe tease and add some suspense on some of the things we have going on. Trying to sort of plant the seeds for some of the things that we're really going to be doing here on SmackDown, specifically heading into No Mercy. And I think that, not just for No Mercy, but Survivor Series, and then even going into the Royal Rumble in January, our SmackDown side of things, I think, is going to come together fantastic. I mean, I just think it's going to be very entertaining, and I don't know. Like, I'm starting to say, like, is Raw better? Is SmackDown better? I don't know. Like, they're both very fun to do. So we'll see. We'll see how it all comes together on that. But as always, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And as an update on the WCW 1998 series, we did our introduction a couple days ago. And if you want to know what I'm putting into in terms of the details in this series, I have spent the last couple days going back and watching WCW Starrcade 1997. I watched Sold Out 98, so the January pay-per-view. And now I'm watching Super Bowl 98, which is the February pay-per-view, because I remember a lot of the stuff off the top of my head, but like I could not tell you, without going back and watching. It's been so long since I've watched some of that stuff. So I went back and started watching it because I want to get a good feel for what WCW did, where things were at, kind of in that standpoint. I'm not going to book exactly like they did, but I wanted to kind of have a feel for the landscape because it's just been so long since I've watched a lot of that. So I am putting some research into it to really get a good feel of the roster, and obviously a lot about Hogan, Sting, and all the other people. I mean, the roster was loaded, but that is kind of what I've been doing. So we're already at work on the second episode of that series, which will be out next, and that will be our first edition of Nitro. So I'm excited about that too. So I hope you look forward to that. And again, be sure to subscribe. That way you can get, not only our WWE 2021 series like this one, but our WCW 1998 one and anything else we decide to do on the channel. So thanks as always for the great feedback, and thanks for watching this episode. On the next episode of our WWE 2021 series, it will be our October Week 2 edition of Raw.